So my name is Chris Cochrane. In Halifax, mostly known as Elle Noir. I've been doing the art of drag for the last 15 years, as of this Tuesday, just passed 15 years. But mostly I'm known now for my activism. So I'm a transgender activism. I'm also an educator, so I teach transgender inclusion in the workplace for corporate companies and also for other companies. And I do speeches for schools, basically anything that you can think of. I've taught there, and I've probably had every job under the sun in my 35 years, all the way from being in the Navy to being a certified actor. I'm an esthetician, a makeup artist. I'm also a performer, producer, a cosmetologist. So there's a list of names and a list of things that I've done. I had somebody at work the other day ask me what jobs I was done. I said, let's just name a job and I'm probably have done it, and I have. So I'm originally from Cape Breton. I don't have the accent. I never did. I do say "use guys" and I talk really fast. That's about the only thing that I have. I'm mixed race, but I like to identify as a black trans woman because I feel that black trans women are grossly underrepresented in not only the media but also in any kind of form. So I like to be proud and make sure that people get to see someone like me, because I never got to see somebody like me when I was younger. So. The thing is that when you're younger, you don't really know. You know that there's something different, but you didn't know exactly what. I was in therapy a lot as a child, as most people that are in the queer community are. And unfortunately, I grew up in the early 90s, so my therapist kind of shunned me to push away from being trans. I actually had this conversation with my husband the other day that when I was going to therapy, he was telling me, boys don't wear dresses, boys don't wear makeup, boys don't do these things, and put me on uppers and then downers and everything else like that. So it was kind of a pushback on it. So I kind of stifled myself. And then also being from a small town, I grew up in Glace Bay, which is a very small town inside of a very small town. So, and unfortunately, there's still a lot of small-mindedness. I was one of only two black people in my school. I graduated with a class of 533. So you can just tell that there was not really that much ethnic diversity in there. So it's funny when people say, well, you're not black enough or you're not dark enough. But I'm like, I might not be dark enough, but there's been many a times where I'm the only black person in the whole room. So. I think my gender and self-identity is not so much the important thing, it's just how I use it. I feel that you can have a platform, but if you just are the pretty face, then go ahead, be the pretty face. But if you're going to have that platform, take that platform and use it for everything that you can. I like to say I use Elle Noir as the foot to get into a door, and then once my pretty face is in that door, then I'm like, oh, wait a minute, I also have all of this with me too. And then I bring that forward. So that's where I've gotten to become an educator and become a speaker and a public speaker, which is funny to me because when I was a kid, I used to cry in front of crowds when I would have to do presentations, and now I'm doing them in front of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people sometimes. So I've become accustomed. I don't think anybody, when they're a kid, they grow up, they want to be a doctor, they want to be a lawyer. I don't think anybody says, I'm going to be a black trans activist. Although the good thing is a bit now is this day and age, because there's people like me and there's people like Laverne Cox and Chaz Bono, that they're now able to say, you know what, actually, when I grow up, I want to fight for the cause. And they have that meaning behind them. So my identity is for who I am, and I don't mind speaking frankly about who I am because there is people that are in my community that would rather not have to. So I'm the voice for them, and I'm also for the voice for people that don't really like to understand us. What I used to say in all of my education classes is that we are not looking for acceptance. We know that everybody is not going to accept us, but we are going to demand respect. That is what everybody deserves, and that's what everybody needs. I come from when I was in the Navy, and I always said, you can always ask me what you want, but be prepared for the answer because you're going to get it. So I don't mind answering anything, just know you're going to get the true full answer of it, even if you don't want it. That's funny. I just did an interview with Brazil Pride well, 2 days ago, and that they asked me that question. So Elle comes from my favorite movie growing up, which was Legally Blonde from Elle Woods. And then Noir comes from, because when I started this, I was the only black drag queen in Halifax. There was ones beforehand and there was ones afterwards, but at that time, I was the only one. And the way the spelling is, there's no E on the end of the noir, so it's actually the masculine form. And if anybody really reads into it, it actually means he, she, black. So it was kind of a statement of where I was at my life when I started 15 years ago. I've obviously progressed since then, but the name comes from that, and I kind of use it as that to the only thing is that now most people think I speak French, so I get a lot of French interviews and asks, and I'm like, no, my French is not that great. So, but that's where the name comes from. But she's kind of the alter ego. So she's been the person that has been the only constant in my life for 15 years. I only met my husband about 7 years ago. So for 15 years, she's been the one that has kind of brought me up, given me the courage to be myself and to actually find who I was as a trans woman. So when I first started the idea of me transitioning, I was in the Navy and I was going through a rough time, self-medicating. So I actually was put in rehab my last few months in the Navy because I wasn't really accepting who I was, and I was also trying to bear down on that. And we don't have the don't ask, don't tell in the military, but it does not mean in Canada, it doesn't mean that we don't have our prejudices and our homophobia. So even though I still was a drag queen, it was still very perceived so much as, we don't talk about that, you do your thing and that's it. So once I left the Navy, I moved to Toronto and I started to see women that were trans, and they were also performers, which I did not really see here in Halifax. So when I moved back to Halifax in 2008 to start my transition, I was kind of determined to make sure that people like me were going to have a voice. Fortunately and unfortunately, I am currently the only black trans drag queen this side of Montreal right now that is performing. So there's black trans women and there's also black drag queens, but there's not any intersectionality right now. So once it comes Pride Month or once it becomes Pride Week here in Halifax, it seems like everybody and their dog is trying to get an interview with me because they just don't want to do the research. So what I've been doing over the last few years is making spaces for people, for QT BIPOC people, which stands for queer, trans, black, indigenous people of color, to make sure that there's spaces for them, for that when I decide that I want to retire, because 15 years doesn't seem like a lot, but it's a lot, believe me. My legs are feeling it. But to make sure that when I leave those spaces, that those spaces are still going to be open for other people. So in the last few years, instead of me doing all the interviews, I've been like, okay, what about this person? Or can you please talk to this person? Or can you give this name? Or just, it's not necessarily that I'm too busy and I don't want to do it. It's that it's like, I am busy, but also I want to make sure that these voices are being heard themselves. One of the things that I curated every year is called the QT BIPOC Show. And it's one of the most attended Pride shows, and we're doing it again this year. It's going to be a little bit different. It's going to be virtual, but it's ran by QT BIPOC people. Our ALS person is QT BIPOC. All the performers are. So I kind of think of it as a FUBU. It's FUBU, for us, by us, and that's the way I want to keep it. I think positive mental health is being allowed to be who you are unapologetically. One of the things that I had my sexual reassignment surgery 2 years ago, and one of the things that I spoke with my husband about was that I was no longer going to debate my existence with people, and that it seems to be a common running theme with government officials, with work, with everything, with government, is that they think that they need to come into our bedroom still again and ask us what is going on behind the doors. You don't need to know who I'm in love with, and you don't need to know what sexual organs I have for me to be able to do my job, and for me to be able to be my person. One of the biggest questions I get asked all the time is, have I had my surgery? I don't mind answering that question, but really it's not really a question that you need to ask, I don't ask you if you get your hair colored or if you got your boobs done over your Christmas vacation. There's no reason for those things because they're mutually exclusive. There's no reason for it. So I think positive health is being able to be yourself unapologetically, but also being able to not have to fear for who you are and always have to stifle yourself. One of the things that I had to do growing up in a small community was I had to constantly push back on who I was, try not to be effeminate, try to be the black man that everybody, expects you to be. And then after a while, I just realized, well, that's not who I am. And if everybody was the same, then it was kind of boring. So you just need to be yourself, and you need to have understanding that other people are not going to always accept you for who you are, and you need to surround yourself with people that are going to, because even if you do have a good support system, if you don't believe in it, then they're not going to believe in it as well. Well, one of the things is I always say I do all of this for a black boy in Cape Breton that didn't have the visibility that they needed to be able to find themselves earlier. So what I would say to myself is that it's going to be rough, but it's going to shape you into the beautiful woman that you are today. My name is Chris Cochrane, and I'm very proud to be me.